Hello everybody, I'm JackieKCooper, and for the last 3 weeks I've been telling you about my experiences when I lived in California with being on the quiz show Joker's Wild. And that story, we ended it last week with me being on the show for a week and getting a lot of prizes, etc., etc. But today I'm going to tell you the rest of the story. And I get that title from, there used to be a news anchor by the name of Paul Harvey. He had a tremendous voice, and you would listen to Paul Harvey in the news. And then he came out with a second show. He would take some occurrence in history, and he would give you the facts about the thing that happened, and then he would give you the outcome or the background, or what he called the rest of the story. And having completed the quiz show, there was a little bit more that happened because, I walked off the quiz show after being on for a week. I had won a variety of things, and when I had signed the contract, which you have to sign when you're on a show like this, and it said, excuse me, it said, if the show does not air in either New York or LA, the tape burns up or whatever happens, if it doesn't air in one of those two places, then you don't get any of your prizes. That's what they said. So I was really relieved. In about 4 or 5 weeks, I heard that the show had aired in New York. It aired it in California a little bit later, but I knew that it aired. Also, they said, we have 6 months to get your prizes to you. And so after the show aired, it was the strangest thing. I would go home, and there'd be a Barcalounger in the driveway. Next day or a few days later, I'd go home, and there'd be a big box, and it'd be the brass bed. And then the jukebox came. And then the lawn furniture came, etc., etc., etc. And this went on. I didn't have to sign for it because my wife was working. I was working. Nobody was at the house. Just came home, and there they were. And then almost 6 months to the day, I go home, go down to the mailbox, and there's an envelope, not certified mail, return receipt requested, or anything else. And I open it up, and there's a check for all the money that I have won. I mean, it really amazed me because I thought, surely they would have had it certified mail to make sure that I got it. But it wasn't. It was just a regular check in an envelope. And before that, I had gotten a call and said, you can come down and pick up your car at such and such a car dealership in LA. And they told me, they described it, it was a Chevette. And they said, now, if you want any extras on it, this is just the basic car. But if you want any extras on it, like air conditioning, AM/FM radio, etc., that type thing, you had to pay a little bit extra. I wasn't paying anything, so I had to pay something for those to be there. But it was a car. And I remember us driving to Los Angeles, and, my wife let me out, and I got the car and then drove it back to Redlands, California. So that was just a really exciting time. One of the things that I won, too, was a trip to the Greek Isles. And this was a trip for two, which a lot of the vacations that are given away are only for one. And, at least that's what they told me then. Because I also won a trip to Tahiti, and that was just for one person. But the trip to, the Greek, the cruise on the Greek Isles, that was for two, except they would pay my way from LA to, I think we flew into Rome. Yeah, we flew into Rome. But they would only pay my wife's trip from New York. So we had to pay the expense of flying my wife to New York, and then we went to Rome, got on a boat, cruised the Greek Isles, came back. They paid for her to come back to New York, and then we paid the expense of her flying home. Well, we really diverted because I flew to New York, my wife flew to Atlanta, my parents met her there. Our sons were small at the time. They took them back to South Carolina. Then my wife flew on to New York. We went, had the vacation, the cruise, came back to New York. I got on a plane, headed out to Los Angeles. She got on a plane, went to Atlanta, picked up the boys, and flew home. So it was kind of complicated, but we got it to work. But when we took the Mediterranean cruise, we spent one night in Rome, and then got on the boat and went down one side of the Mediterranean and saw all the places along the way. Went down to Turkey, and then spent, the boat was in port in Ankara, Turkey, and we were there for a day or so, and then came back up the other side of the Greek Isles. Now, the funny thing was that one of the things, I'd never traveled in Europe, so I didn't know anything about it, but one of the things that they told us was, never surrender your passport. Never give up your passport. If somebody asks for your passport, no. Well, when we went down the Greek Isles and got to Ankara, then Turkish soldiers came on board and said, we're collecting passports. You'll get them back when you leave to go back on the rest of your cruise. And what did we do? We all handed over our passports like we'd been told not to do. But nothing adverse happened. It was a wonderful, wonderful trip. The Mediterranean was beautiful. I know any of y'all who've been there or who live there, gorgeous. And it was. The only thing is I spent too much time out in the sun, on the deck, around the pool, and I got blistered, sunburn. And, really overdid it, cooked myself. And we go back, and my wife says, you've got to see the ship's doctor, and, etc. Well, he came to our room, but he didn't speak English. We had to, and I didn't speak whatever Italian or whatever it was that he was speaking, and so we had to do like sign language. And I remember he kept punching me with his finger, and I kept going, oh, and he would go, da 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 da. And what he ended up doing was like smearing me with calamine lotion or something like that, and it was just, I was coated with it. Well, then I was starving. I remember that also. And to go to the, area where we were being fed, it was, all these fine dining tables, etc. And you had to wear a coat and tie. So I had to put, clothes on over this calamine lotion stuff just in order to be able to go and get something to eat. But it was quite an experience, beautiful country, just great. We went to, I think it was an island called Santorini, and we came in, and it was just like a sheer wall with a path going, winding its way up this mountain. And they had pack animals, I guess, I don't know what they were, that you could ride, to the top of Santorini, where the village was, or the town was. And my wife said, I'm not getting on one of those things. There is no way I am getting on one of those animals. Well, this didn't make the people who had the animals, and you kind of tipped them or whatever, and we said, no, we'll walk. And I remember walking up the face of that cliff thinking I would never, ever get to the top. And as we're walking, the people with the pack animals kind of came by and kind of pushed us out of the way. I guess we were holding up traffic. And so they were not happy with us. But when we got to the very top, then we were walking around the town, and you see they have a harbor which is just flat. So you can come in on one side of the island, which is this walk up to heaven type thing, or you can go on the other side where there would be no walk at all. But, that's just part of the experience, just part of the experience. So it was great. We had, fantastic things. When we got back, it came time for income tax to be paid, and you treated the gifts that you got just like ordinary income, except, the quiz show inflated the price and value of everything. If you could find a picture, an advertisement that gave a different price, and you had a list of all the valuations that they gave you for the things you won, when you filed your income tax, you could file the picture and get, all you had to pay tax on was the value of that in the article or advertisement or whatever. So my wife spent tons of time trying to find a jukebox that we could, that matched, but was at a lower rate, a brass bed that was a lower rate, air conditioner, etc., which we did, and it wasn't as bad as we thought it would be. But after the quiz show was over with, it was like, I don't know, it gave me a whole new look on life. I'd never really won anything before. Now I thought, I can win things. I can do things. It's making the effort that counts. Because I'm sure there have been a lot of people who moved to California, visited California, did whatever in California, who thought, I'd like to be on a quiz show. But if you don't make that first effort, it never happens. Now you may make the effort and it's still not happen, but it's not even possible that it's going to happen unless you make that first effort. And that's the lesson I learned from that. When there were things that I wanted and I thought, nah, I'm not going to be able to do that, I thought, I'd rather fail trying than never try at all. So remember that, because it's a lesson for life. Hope you got that. But anyway, that's the rest of the story. I'm Jackie K. Cooper.